wanna be with you.
The folder slid across the kitchen table the way his father did everything. Square, level, final. Vance and Son Municipal Contracting embossed like a headstone, a plastic tab with Elias's name already printed on it. Behind him, his mother stirred the Sunday pot and said nothing, which was its own kind of speech. Apprenticeship starts Monday, Silas said. Not a question, not an offer, a load calculation. Union card by Christmas. You'll thank me at 40. The stew breathed ginger into the room. Elias looked at his name in the little plastic window and understood with a clarity that frightened him that a well-built room and a cell have the same corners. Midnight made the estimate sheets honest. Load-bearing columns of numbers marched down every page in his father's handwriting. And there, in the margins, Elias's own hand had been committing quiet treason for years. A hibiscus flower blooming out of a cost column. 2 hands cupped around something growing. A wall that curved because it wanted to. He sat on the floor of his bedroom with the sheets fanned around him like evidence and traced the drawings he didn't remember making. 19 years old and already an expert at fitting inside other men's lines. From the kitchen, the murmur of his parents' voices, his father's flat as a level, his mother's rising once, softly and holding there. Elias pressed his thumb against the little painted flower until the paper warmed and let himself want, for one dangerous minute, a life with no margins at all. If this story is already moving you, take 1 second to like and subscribe. It helps us keep bringing Black love stories like this one to life. Sunday, after the plates were cleared and his father had gone to measure something that didn't need measuring, his mother set the envelope beside the goat stew's last steam like it was nothing, like it wasn't everything. Your grandmother's people are still in Osu, Ruby said, stirring honey into her tea. My cousin Akosua, she has a compound and opinions. The envelope was soft with handling, fat with what he would later count as 4 years of quiet arithmetic. Grocery change, hemmed dresses, tips, folded small. He couldn't speak. She didn't need him to. Go and see where my mother's hands learned to cook, she said, and her voice didn't shake until the last word. Come back when you know what your hands are for. Under the table, her fingers closed over his, warm, certain, already grieving the distance and paying its fare anyway. He packed at 4 in the morning, when the house belonged to the Radiators. 1 green canvas backpack, army surplus, older than he was. 3 shirts, the mustard yellow linen his mother pressed last night without being asked. A sketchbook with the first page still blank because blank pages ask a question he'd never been allowed to answer. He left the note on the kitchen table under the salt where his father squared his coffee cup every morning at 6. 12 words, none of them sorry. At the door he stopped and listened to the house breathe. Radiator tick, refrigerator hum, the small sleeping thunder of his father. And beneath it all, faint as a pilot light, his mother's kitchen still smelling of ginger. He shouldered the pack. The latch closed behind him softer than a held breath. Somewhere over the black Atlantic, the boy beside the window stopped being able to see America. Elias pressed his forehead to the cold oval and watched the dark water run beneath the wing. The same water, he thought, and could not finish the thought, because the same water had carried his blood the other direction in chains, and here he was, riding 30,000 feet above the wound with a paper cup of ginger ale. The cabin slept. He didn't. He opened the sketchbook to its first blank page and wrote at the top, in his mother's tidy schoolteacher letters, What are my hands for? Then he watched the sky at the edge of the world turn the color of the inside of a mango, and the question stayed open like a door. The heat met him at the aircraft door like family, palm open, unapologetic. Kotoka hummed with 1,000 homecomings. Banners breathed against the terminal glass. Akwaaba, welcome home, the year of return. All around him, the diaspora poured off jet bridges wearing 400 years of distance. Looking, he saw it in every face because it was in his. For something no customs form had a box for. The officer stamped his passport and smiled. First time? First time. No, the man said, handing it back. First time was long ago. This is the return. Elias walked into the shouting gold light of Accra, and his lungs let all the way go. The taxi had a cracked windshield, a dashboard Jesus, and a driver named Fifi who drove the way Accra talked, loud, generous, certain of its right-of-way. The city came through the open window in whole paragraphs. Plantains blackening sweet over charcoal, diesel, and dust, a wall of speakers trading Afro beats with a tro-tro's horn. Women crossed the traffic like weather, commerce balanced on their heads with an architecture his father's whole firm couldn't draft. A hawker carried a bathroom mirror down the lane of cars, and Elias caught his own face going by. Afro flattened from the plane, eyes wide, grinning like someone had left a gate open. Fifi watched him in the rear view. You're one of the returns. It wasn't a question here either. Auntie Akosua looked at him for exactly 3 seconds before she claimed him. Ruby's boy, she said, and the name in her mouth had a music it was never allowed in New York. The compound in Osu was a kingdom of practical miracles, zinc roof, swept red earth, hibiscus climbing a blue wall, a table that seated however many arrived. She fed him before she questioned him, goat stew that stung his eyes for reasons only partly pepper, ginger beer sharp enough to reset a life. Cousins counted his features aloud and pronounced him theirs. You sleep there, Akosua said, already ladling seconds. You eat everything, and tomorrow Accra will see what you are made of. The generator 2 compounds over sang itself to sleep, and the stars came up over Osu like someone had spilled them. Elias lay on the cot with the night pressing warm through the window netting and called his father. Once. Twice. The third ring cut to nothing. Silas had looked at the screen then, had held his son's name in his hand and said it face down. Elias breathed through the specific arithmetic of that hurt. Then the phone lit. His mother. Did you eat? Did Akosua feed you? Is the hibiscus still on the blue wall? He typed, yes, yes, still there. A pause. The 3 little dots breathing. Then I am there too. Sleep, my heart. He slept with the phone on his chest and dreamed in a color he didn't have a name for yet. By morning, he would learn it was indigo. Morning in Accra didn't arrive. It resumed. By 6, the street outside the compound was a working conversation. Brooms hushing the red dust, roosters editorializing, the tea-seller's kettle already breathing steam into gold light. Elias sat on a plastic stool with hibiscus tea in a glass the color of a ruby held to a lamp and watched a city assemble itself with a joy so casual it looked like competence. A woman roasting plantains lifted her chin at him. You're new. A man wheeling a bicycle heavy with bread said something in Ga to make 3 strangers laugh, and Elias laughed too, at nothing, at everything, at being nobody's apprentice on a street where nobody knew the shape his father had drawn for him. The tea was tart and sweet. and unreasonably red. He drank too. The city kept telling him its name. Makola Market did not have an entrance. It had a current. One moment, Elias was on a sidewalk. The next, he belonged to a river of commerce that had opinions about his pace. Towers of tomatoes red as sirens, wax print fabric in bolts stacked into cathedrals, indigo, gold, a green that hummed. Market women called prices like psalms, ran empires from wooden stalls, made change from aprons that held more capital than his father's petty cash ever had. Smoked fish, silvered whole tables. Shea butter sat in drums like moonlight by the kilo. Somewhere close, a stereo losing its mind in the best way. He surrendered his straight lines. The market bent him around corners it chose, spun him past a mountain of yams, and then, as if the whole roaring current had been aimed all along at one wall, it let him go. The wall was 4 stories of fire. Elias stopped so completely that the market current parted around him, annoyed, and he didn't feel it. A man rose across the entire brick face of the building, a black man with locks pouring down his shoulders, rendered in golds and impossible blues, and in his cupped hands, held the way you hold a thing you would die before dropping. One small green seedling. The painted man was not planting it. He was offering it. Elias's chest did something tectonic. He didn't have the word yet for why his eyes were burning in a market at 10 in the morning. He only knew that somebody in this city had taken everything he'd been sketching in the margins of his father's arithmetic for 19 years and made it the size of a building. The seedling's smallest leaf was still wet. Above him, paint dripped from a scaffold like rain that had changed its mind. He followed the drip upward. 2 stories overhead, on a scaffold lashed from bamboo like a drawing of the idea of a scaffold, stood the painter. Bare-chested in the climbing sun, dark mahogany skin glistening with the honest sweat of vertical work, mud-splattered denim shorts, a carved wooden pendant swinging from a leather cord as he leaned out over gravity like it was an old friend who owed him money. His twists were cropped short and sculptural, cuffed in small rings of gold that caught the light when he moved. And he moved the way the market moved, certain, unhurried, entitled to the air. A full mustache framed a mouth that was already, Elias realized with a jolt, smiling, down at him. The painter sat back on his heels on the bamboo, brush loose in paint-stained fingers, indigo to the wrist, and looked at the boy looking at his wall the way you look at weather arriving. "You've been standing there 11 minutes. The painter's voice came down easy, English rolled warm around gav vowels. "The record is 9. Tourists take a picture and go. He pointed the brush, and a drop of indigo committed to the air between them. "You look at it like it's a mirror." Elias's mouth went dry in the wet heat. "Maybe it is," he called up, and didn't look away. The painter laughed, dimples deep enough to plant something in, gold cuffs flashing. "A mirror that needs finishing, then. The man in my wall has his roots. Where are yours?" Elias meant to answer with his mother's country. What came out was the truth. "I'm here to find out." The painter considered him for one long amber second. The way Elias would think later. You consider a wall before the first stroke. Then he reached into the paint bucket hooked to the bamboo and tossed. The brush turned twice against the sun, handle over bristle, a small wooden comet trailing indigo, and Elias's hand, his soft, unemployed, treasonous American hand, rose and caught it clean out of the air before his mind had voted. The wooden handle was warm. Paint kissed his wrist, blue as the dream he couldn't name 2 nights ago. Above him, the painter was already turning back to the wall, as if the whole thing was settled, as if it had been settled since the market current chose this street. Bottom corner needs earth, he called over his shoulder, gold winking in his twists. Brown first, then we teach you green. I'm Kwesi. A beat. The wall will want your name too. Elias, he said to the wall as much as the man, and put the brush to the brick. His first stroke was terrible, crooked, apologetic, the stroke of a boy raised on rulers, and Kwesi, dropping down the bamboo to land beside him, looked at it with delight. Good. You brought honesty. He didn't correct the line. He built beside it, dragging a horizon of ochre along the wall's base until Elias's crooked mark became a root. Again. Slower. The wall isn't going anywhere. You are the one always going somewhere. Leave it outside. The second line came out less like an apology. Shoulder to shoulder, they laid earth under a giant, and nobody on the street knew a boy's life was quietly changing hands. By afternoon, the sun had opinions and the wall drank paint faster than they could feed it. Elias's shirt was tied at his waist. His shoulders had found the rhythm the way shoulders do when the mind finally leaves them alone. Kwesi worked beside him in running commentary. Small, small. You paint like you're being graded. Who is grading you? Send him to me. And the teasing landed soft, because under it ran something Elias had never received from a man with authority over his hands: delight. They traded the water bottle and the names of things. This brown is Shea Hill's clay. This blue walked here from Intonso. This gold we make ourselves. When Kwesi laughed, the cuffs in his twists threw sparks. Elias caught himself watching the sparks. He went back to the wall and painted joy. The tea seller found them at 4, 2 glasses of hibiscus so cold the glass wept. They sat on overturned buckets in the mural's shadow, and Kwesi asked the question men who build things always ask. Your father, what does he make? Elias watched the red tea hold the light. Contracts, sidewalks, plans for other people's lives. Kwesi nodded, unshocked, wiping indigo from his knuckle. Mine mended nets. He hated the sea. Every morning hating it, he went. A long pull of tea. The wall taught me, you can inherit the hands without inheriting the hate. The hands are yours, Charlie. He knocked his glass gently against Elias's. To the hands. The tea tasted like a country his mother had saved up to give him. The seedling's smallest leaf defeated him. It needed a curve laid in one motion, confident, unbroken, alive. And Elias's hand kept manufacturing careful little segments. Kwesi watched 2 failures, then stepped in close behind, sea salt, linseed, shea, the working heat of him, and closed his paint-stained hand over Elias's on the brush. The stroke doesn't live in the fingers. His voice went quiet, meant for one person. It lives here. His other hand touched Elias's shoulder blade briefly, precisely. Breathe out. Go. They went. One motion, wrist to shoulder, the green arriving like it had always been there. And for the length of that stroke, there was no market, no Atlantic, no folder with his name in a plastic window. Kwesi stepped back too soon. Neither of them said anything, which was how Elias knew. They cleaned brushes in a cut-down barrel as the light went long and amber and forgiving. Kwesi pointed with his chin down the falling street toward where the city ended in a glitter of ocean. Jamestown, my side, the lighthouse, the boxers, the fishermen, the oldest bones of Accra. The word my wore no fence on it. It was the my of belonging, not owning. I have a studio on the water. Tin roof. When it rains, it plays drums. He said it looking at the sea, not at Elias, which somehow made it larger. The pigments, I make them there. Clay, leaves, fire. The earth holds the memory of who we are. I just ask it to speak. Below them, Accra was lighting itself lamp by lamp, and the painted man on the wall above held his seedling out over the whole of it. Elias dried his hands slowly, deliberately, memorizing the shape of an invitation that had not quite been spoken yet. Akosua's courtyard. Night. The phone propped against the ginger beer bottle. His mother's face filled the screen from a Bronx kitchen one whole life away, and when Elias turned the camera to show his hands, indigo in the creases, ochre under the nails, Ruby went silent the way she only did in church. "Whose colors are those?" "A wall's," he said. "A painter's. Mama, I painted a leaf today, and it'll be there tomorrow." She pressed 2 fingers to the screen. He pressed his back, stained to hers. Behind her, a shape crossed the kitchen without slowing. His father's voice, off-screen, level as ever. "Tell him rent is not a color." Ruby's eyes didn't waver. "He kept your note. It's in his shirt pocket. He thinks I don't see." The lantern made the courtyard a small gold country, and Akosua held citizenship in every story. She dealt photographs from a biscuit tin like cards from a winning hand. Your grandmother, before she crossed. 16. A girl in Sunday cotton, chin up, eyes Elias had inherited by way of Ruby, standing before this compound's same blue wall. She cooked with her whole back, like your mother. She sang in God of the pot, so it wouldn't get lonely. Elias held the photograph the way Kwesi held a loaded brush. Why did she leave? Akosua looked at him over the lantern. For the same reason you came, to find out what her hands were for. She closed his fingers over it. Keep it. A compass should have a face on it. Sleep circled the cot and declined to land. Past midnight, Elias gave up honorably, lit the stub of candle, and opened the sketchbook to the page that had been blank since New York. The page with the question at the top in his mother's borrowed handwriting. What are my hands for? He drew, not the mural, the making of it, a bamboo scaffold against gold air, a brush turning twice in the sun with its little comet tail of blue, 2 hands on one handle, one of them certain. He drew the gold cuffs. He caught himself drawing the gold cuffs, drew them anyway, and sat back, heart going like the market at 10 in the morning. Outside, Osu breathed. Somewhere west, an ocean he had crossed. Somewhere south, a tin roof waiting for rain. He looked at the page a long time. Then, under his mother's question, he wrote one word, painting. And the question mark was the least honest thing on the page. By late morning, a small crowd had accumulated the way crowds do when a thing nears its becoming. Market women with hands on hips like inspectors general, 2 boys narrating every stroke, the tea seller declaring free glasses a civic act. The seedling wanted its final green. Kwesi loaded the brush and, with the whole street watching, held it out, handle first. Your leaf, your finish. Elias's hand was steady in a way that was 19 years overdue. One motion, breath going out, and the seedling stood complete in the giant's offered hands, 4 stories of patience ending in one green instant. The street made a sound like a wave deciding. Kwesi looked at Elias with those missing nothing eyes and said, entirely to him, "Look what grows when you stop asking permission." Golden hour poured down the street and set the finished wall alight. They stood before it side by side, paint-stained, shoulders not quite touching, and Elias felt the day settle over him with a weight that wasn't weight at all. Kwesi packed his brushes with the unhurried ceremony of a man who has never been late for anything that mattered, shouldered the roll, and turned down the hill toward Jamestown and the sea. 3 steps. Then he stopped, half gold in the falling light, and looked back, dimples arriving before the smile, gold winking in his twists. Come back tomorrow. The wall isn't finished. A beat, the ocean glittering far below like a promise with the tide behind it. Neither are you.